Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast on a very special night, Election Night, Ontario 2018. And it's looking great right now for anybody who is voted for the PC party. We've done it. It is official. It's already been called that Doug Ford and the PC party have won the Ontario election. I don't know about the rest of you, but that makes me very happy. And as we can see, oh, right. Sorry, I've got to switch my screen on here. So here we go. As we can see here, it's looking fantastic so far for the PC party. They're on their way to a majority government. So far, 49 elected officials so far, 22 to go. Oh man, this has been it was a stressful time. It's definitely, I know a lot of people probably like me were getting not so sure, a little nervous about what the results were going to be, because for so long they've been talking about how it's been neck and neck with the NDP party. But as we can see here, by the way, I don't have my chat open, so I don't know what you're writing right now, if there's even anybody watching at the moment. But as we take a look around, Southern Ontario went very blue, and it was mostly Northern Ontario so far that it ended up voting for the for most so far for the NDP, but that's where the advantage comes for the PC party over the NDP. So we sort of zoom in here to the Toronto area, the GTA. As we zoom in close, you can see there's a lot of small ridings over here, and that's where that's why it's most important to win the Grand Toronto area, whether we're talking about federal election or we're talking about the provincial election. So we do have a little bit of, we got some, some red, we got some orange, but for the most part, we're seeing a lot of blue in Southern Ontario. I know for the most part, Ottawa ended up doing the same. If I can find it over here. 1 second. Yeah, we're getting in here. It was sort of the downtown core seemed to have gone more for the Liberals and then a little bit for the NDP, but the remaining areas, Carleton, Canada, Nepean, and we're getting into more of the outskirts there. This is where they ended up voting for. We ended up seeing a lot more blue. So this is fantastic so far, because I know a lot of you, we were very concerned about what a NDP government meant. I mean, I know a lot of people probably were not too happy with the idea of. We're probably not too happy with the idea of an NDP government and living in a sanctuary province. I mean, that was really, for me, one of the big ones. I was always worried about, what if the NDP won and they officially declare Ontario as a sanctuary province? What's that going to mean for all of us? Well, number one, meant under an NDP government, it definitely meant higher taxes. But the idea of a sanctuary province was a concerning one, because whenever we look to anywhere else that have allowed this sort of area, whether it be a sanctuary state, sanctuary city, sanctuary province, whatever it happened to be, or just a country, sanctuary country, the results are never good. I mean, in San Diego, they're talking about how, because I think not just strictly having to do with the amount of migrants that came in, the illegal migrants, but also having to do with the homeless, but they allowed defecation in their streets. I couldn't believe that. And then if we look at more of the countries that have allowed during the 2015 migrant crisis, they were letting in a lot of people. And then it just led to a culture clash. So if we were living in a sanctuary province, if we were to actually follow up with the NDP and live in a sanctuary province, then it was, we were going to go in for a rough time. We already have enough people crossing at Roxham Road, and that would just increase it ever so much more. And we're up to 53 elected officials so far, with the PCs having 40% of the popular vote, 27 for the NDP, 27 elected so far, with 34.5% of the elected vote. And the Liberals are trailing badly. I mean, that was to be expected. What the hell was Kathleen Wynne thinking? She declares, like, a week before the election, she declares that she's already lost, and then she's friggin' and then that we should only vote for the Liberals to prevent a majority government. Yeah, like, that's going to work. Vote for us because just cuz. That's pretty much was their whole strategy. Although they did better than I think some people were predicting. Some were predicting as low as only 1 seat for the Liberals. Thank freaking God. I mean, we've had enough of Kathleen win for one elect for 15 years. The Liberals have been in power in the last I think she came in 2013, so but the last 5 years, Kathleen Wynne, she's done enough damage. She has done enough damage, and actually, I want to let's check out Don Valley West. That is the Kathleen Wynne riding. So I'd be very curious to see if she lost her seat there. Does not look like it. Hold on. Yeah, when we're talking about the Don Valley West, it was actually a lot closer than I was expecting. Hold on. Let me just share my screen. So once again, I don't have the chat open my screen, so I can't read what any of you are saying at the moment. But as you can see here, this is Don Valley West riding. It was 10,000 points so far, but 9,000 for John Kieran. That's actually a lot closer than I was expecting it to be. I was wondering whether people in the area were at enough of Kathleen Wynne, but apparently not. But still, she only won by looks to be just over 100 votes so far. I don't know. I think it hasn't been called yet, though. I don't believe. No, not yet. But we're seeing a nice big blue map in southern Ontario. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Ooh. And this is the important area right here, right down in the GTA area. That's where most of them count. But even let's take a look at what we're looking at, northern Ontario. So still some areas to be called, but this is where the NDP, they've always actually had more support in the north, always actually in Ontario. But the problem for them is how big their freaking ridings are. I mean, look at this. James Bay, it's freaking it's huge. So I understand that it's because they don't have as many people living there, but that is the disadvantage to the NDP. It's beautiful. 56 elected so far for the Conservatives, 27 for the NDP, and only 1 for the Liberals. Oh shit, they're tied right now with the Greens, although they still have 7 lead. We're looking at the lead right here. They still have 7 more to go, so those will get called in, and they'll probably end up with 8 seats. And the Greens have their guaranteed 1 seat, but the Greens aren't very significant. They never really have been, which is funny why a lot of Greens were bitching about not being in the debates this year, because why would we give a party that gets 1 seat in the House of Commons get a place in the debates? You need to have a certain amount of support before you can actually be allowed on into the debates. So there's absolutely no way, but they think it's unfair. Poor little Greens. Oh man, this is good to see though. I've had enough of the Liberal government living in Ontario right now, and the thing is too is Doug Ford has pretty much already stated that he's planning to team up with a lot of the other conservative parties in the more western provinces. So it looks like when the Alberta election comes in, it's going to be it most likely will end up being the United Conservative Party, and then if I'm remembering correctly, I think Saskatchewan has a conservative government as well. Can't remember Manitoba right now though. It's possible that they also have a conservative government, but the whole point is these conservative parties, the provincial parties, are going to come together and try and fight back against Justin Trudeau. Man, this is looking great so far. I'm happy. Oh, looks like I got bold like a leopard. Says he's going to join me when he get home. So if I'm still online, I will invite him in. That would be awesome. I would like to have couple people on here just to sort of talk it out. I finally got my chat open, so I want to thank you, Jim So, for so much great work this campaign. I voted and I'm happy. Glad I could be of service there, Peter. Sometimes I feel like I'm just a guy who's just saying stupid BS into the camera, and maybe I'm not really bringing anything new to the conversation. But anything I could do, I'm really happy that I could be of service. And thank you all for joining me. I appreciate that too. Let's get back here. Let's get back and see what we're looking at. So far, it looks like the Conservatives are holding steady at 40% popular vote, while the NDP have a 34 right now. 31 elected for the NDP, 57 for the 57 for the PCs. And the thing I'm loving most actually about watching this map, which just give me 1 second, and I will once again switch the screen. Just gotta quickly do something. There we go. So I'm gonna switch the screen again for you guys. Thing I'm loving most here is just seeing the results for the Liberal Party after everything we've had to deal with Kathleen Wynne, after everything she's put us through and put everyone else in Ontario through, selling off the hydro one, the gas plant scandal. I mean, we are so done with the Liberal government now. And clearly Ontario, a lot of Ontario feels the exact same way, especially when we're talking about the southern area of Ontario. Oh, I'm loving this map right now. I was kind of hoping that Doug Ford would be able to pull out this super majority. That would have been a nice upset in for Ontario, because I don't think there's ever been a super majority inside of Ontario. Actually, I can't offhand even think if there's been a super majority when we're talking about provincial elections in Canada. So it would have been nice to see that. I know that my riding ended up going blue. Again, it was only the downtown core of Ottawa that ended up voting for the Liberals, and one area ended up going for the NDP as well. In my opinion, a lot of the people that are voting for this, end up voting for the NDP, I find that they're very misinformed is most likely the problem. Because if they actually think things like a sanctuary province is a good idea, then they're foolish. If they think that putting in all these radical people, all these radical candidates that are there, then Jesus. Oh, Top Leaf. Sorry, just a guy that I've streamed with a few times. He's just messaged me. I haven't talked to him in a while. Oh, this is too good. What about you guys? How you feeling right now? If anybody there wants to write in the chat, you can put your own feelings in there, what you feel about Doug Ford. I mean, I in the past have shown support for Doug Ford. I showed a lot of support for Doug Ford, but I have to say that we have to bear in mind that it is that he is a politician. So I will support him. Well, I've supported him through this, and I will support him while he's in office. But we need to be sure that. But I still want to pay close attention to Doug Ford just to be safe, because you never know when you're dealing with politicians in and of themselves. 60, yeah. So it looks like it's probably going to stay pretty steady right now. As I'm looking at these results, it still look like about 40% the popular vote for the Conservatives and 34.3% of the popular vote for the NDP. This is another upset because we had something similar happen in the 2011 election, where we had on 1 second, where the Liberals, they were always the official opposition, but then all of a sudden they lost so much support to make the NDP the official opposition. So I'm hoping that when it comes in, ooh, Gurakat Singh. I think this Gurakat Singh ended up winning in his riding so far. He ended up getting 9,935 votes, and then the conservative candidate ended up getting 7,500. Now, Guratat Singh, you can find pictures of him walking in protest with literally a sign that says "fuck the police." This is the type of people that the NDP have in their support. I think, does anybody know offhand, is that Jagmeet Singh's brother? That I'm pretty sure they are. They even look kind of similar, like the same facial features, but I don't actually know for a fact. But this is the sort of people that the NDP support. It's these radical people. Hold on. But that was the thing that concerned me. Aside for the sanctuary state, putting the sanctuary state aside, the thing that really did concern me when it came to the NDP also had to do the sort of people that they were wanting to put in. And you could clearly see the double standard that was coming out of Andrea Horwath. You know, whenever it was one of her people, well, oh no, it's free speech, or oh no, you know, we need to give them the benefit of the doubt. There's right to due process. Well, sorry, I almost dropped some. But she never had that same reaction whenever it was anyone else. If it was part of the PC party, every single little thing, you have to apologize. You have to apologize. You have to apologize. Or you have to be out. I mean, she said that about Patrick Brown. When the allegations came around Patrick Brown after he stood down from the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, she was immediately saying that he shouldn't have to give up his seat as well, that he shouldn't even have any part in the Conservative caucus. But now all of a sudden it's her people. Oh, one of my MPs put out a Hitler quote. Oh well, no, it's free speech. One of my MPs doesn't want to wear a poppy, and she thinks that she thinks it's collective brainwashing. Well, you know, she doesn't have to apologize for that. And this is the sort of thing that you would have with the NDP government. This is the sort of thing that we would have with the NDP government, is these sort of people in charge. Do you really trust any of these people in charge? Bull like a leopard. It was Russia. You know it, man. Russia definitely hacked our election. But I don't know about the rest of you, but when I was going to the polls today, I think I voted around 4 o'clock, 4:30, I think was when I went out to the polls to cast my vote. I was looking at them, watching them as they put in the ballots into that electronic voting machine, and I didn't like it whatsoever as I was watching them do that. The idea of electronic voting is just so dangerous. There's too much at risk when it comes to electronic voting. There was, I can't remember, it was a Tech Institute or something. They put out a video a couple of years ago where they were showing that these electronic voting machines, and in this case, we were using electronic tallying machines, because anyone voting in the Ontario election knows that we ended up having paper ballots, but then it was getting put through these electronic voting machines. And they were saying it was because there weren't enough people and it would take too long to do it by hand. But that is definitely always the safest bet whenever you're doing with it, because these machines can be too easily hacked. I want to see if I still have an article saved, actually. That was, it was pretty important. Yes, here it is. Well, it's not the article itself, but it's the man who they were showing in the article. They were talking to in this article. So let me just switch this real quick. Share the screen for you. So it was this guy, Alexander Essex, and he's a professor from Western University. And he was talking about how there was really no sort of standards around in Canada when it came to electronic voting or electronic tallying machines, and that, well, in a lot of situations, but especially in Canada, it was ripe for abuse if ever somebody wanted to hack the machines, manipulate the results. It would not be that hard to do, because even some modern day electronic voting machines can be manipulated with old school technology. In that video I ended up watching, which I can't remember where it is right now, but in one of my videos I did, hold on. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. In this one about Justin Trudeau, I put out almost a week ago, rigging the game Trudeau style. Near the end, I end up showing a few clips from that where it showed that a 2003 like Macintosh computer was able to hack into this machine, this electronic voting machine, by a experienced hacker. He was able to do it in like I think less than an hour. And this was more in the modern day voting machines. It was used, I think, in at least in the 2000s. I think it was used, maybe not in the 2016 presidential election, but the 2012, the 2008 election, it was used in there. And this is just the dangers that come out of using using electronic voting. So it's not crazy about using them ever. I really am not. But this is too good right now. We're having about 74 seats for total for the PC party, which means it's time to undo all the damage from the Liberals that they put in. I really hope that Doug Ford. There's a few promises that I'm hoping that he does. I hope that he does audit the Liberal books. I'm pretty sure he will, because a lot of his platform, a lot of his financial economic platform is relying on the fact that he audits the books, find where the Liberals were just wasting money, because he's not going to implement a carbon tax. Thank you for that. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's the other one. I would say it's the audit of the books, not implementing the carbon tax. And then the one thing that's really disturbed me over the last little bit, over the last couple years, is just seeing how the sexualization of kids has really become a much more normalized thing. I mean, I suppose the most popular thing these days has been there was that incident with YouTube, I think maybe not even 6 months ago, where it was showing results for for kids of really sexual videos. It's sick. And then we have meanwhile we have a sex education in place right now that was written by a pedophile, literally a pedophile. He got arrested for child porn charges. And then Kathleen Wynne didn't want to do away with it. It should have been completely scrapped, rewritten, and anybody who was working on it should have had an even better background check, so that way they can guarantee that nobody there was trying to manipulate the children. But no, Kathleen Wynne kept it in place. I mean, I didn't even start learning about sexual education until grade 7 officially, but grade 6 we at least learned about the anatomy. Like, women learned about the female anatomy, men learned about the male anatomy, puberty, that sort of thing. But now it's like, starting from grade 1 they want to teach this. By grade 6 they're learning about anal sex. Like, this is so fucked up. So I really want to see that there's these are some of the changes that I really hope they implement. I really hope that they're willing to I really hope they're willing to scrap the sex education, or at least revise it. At the very least, revise it. Don't implement your carbon tax. Audit the books. And what would be kind of awesome too would be if where Doug Ford said that nobody who pays what would really be awesome too is when Doug Ford said that anyone working minimum wage wouldn't have to pay any income tax. Oh, that's going to be lovely. Now, they tried to make that sound like it was actually going to be a deficiency to people, like it's actually a bad thing that he wants to be have people keep their money in their pockets. I can't, honestly, aside for slandering the man, I really can't understand why they would think that people keeping their money in their pockets is a bad thing. And this is another thing, going back for a minute to Jagmeet Singh, that he said, because in the past, in one of his speeches, he's talked about how, like, these days the right wing's trying to present it as the government's the enemy and that taxes are a bad thing. Well, if you're going to tax the shit out of us, then absolutely it's a bad thing. I won't go as far as a libertarian say taxation is theft, but I think we do need at least a little bit to be taxed a little bit, just to help pay for certain things. But all in all, the amount of tax that people pay these days is ridiculous. I mean, I would never put it higher than like 3-4% at most. But now we're like dealing with, especially if you're getting up in the high tax rate, sorry, if you make a large income, you're getting taxed pretty heavily. I don't know can't remember exactly what it is, but I think it's like something like 35%. So it's a new day in Ontario, and I actually feel some relief right now. I actually feel a little bit better that, and now that I've seen the results, I don't know. I can't really. It's like almost feels like I have had some tension leading up this election just because there's been a lot that's on the line. But now we actually have somebody in charge who, whether you like it or not, you don't even have to like the man himself. But we have a party in charge that is fiscally responsible, and that's going to is going to undo a lot of the damage that we already have done. Oh man, this is literally, you could probably just see as I'm getting more relaxed after watching these results come in. And little bit, things are starting to drop a little bit for the PCs when we're talking about the popular vote. Technically, it's 39.99%, so 40%, but they were a little bit higher, about half a percentage point higher. But that all seems to be, it's the NDP. It's the NDP that sort of stole that little extra there at 34.3% right now. And it's possible that the Liberals making no, never mind. I thought I said 7 seats earlier. I did say 8 seats. But as it stands, the PC party are going to have 71 seats. That's fucking fantastic. And you know what? They didn't fall too far short of their super majority. I mean, it's still 5% of the vote or something like that. So it is a pretty big, that is when we're talking, it is actually bigger. But when we're talking percentage points, 5% is not that bad. So if people want to put in the chat, I'd be curious, what was the reason that you voted for the PC party? Or if you didn't vote for the PC party and you're watching this, what was the reason that you voted for the party that you did? Because I know a couple people on the ballot, there was the none of the above party. That was kind of funny. That's really what they're there for. It's for people who have been disillusioned with the current people in charge and the current process. You can vote for the none of the above Democratic Party. Yeah, it was kind of funny. I know a lot of people actually tend to vote for Green as a throwaway vote when they don't like anybody that's in charge. They tend to vote for Green. I actually know 1 or 2 people that did that just because they really didn't like it. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Migio. I went through the 2017 provincial budget. It made me vote PC. So yours was mostly economic reasons. I understand why you say that. That was maybe half of the reason I ended up voting for him. And as I've sort of just started paying more attention to politics over the last year, I got to admit, like even a year ago or so, I guess it's a little over a year since I've started my podcast, I didn't even consider myself a conservative. I didn't even think I had support for the Conservative Party of either Ontario or Canada. But that is just, I've been sort of making that transition over the last year. And some of it has to do with economic. Actually, I would say a large part of it has to do with economic. I'm not the most economically minded person, but as I kind of have watched what a lot of left-wing economics does to a lot of countries, it really has made me much more trustworthy in fiscally conservative people. For instance, like we see how high taxation really just makes the entire population poor. And when you start destroying the private sector and trying to force everyone into the public sector, it's not going to work because the way I've described it is that the private sector is like a house. It's the foundation of it's the foundation of the how do I put this? It's the foundation of your country's work. I know I said that very poorly. Foundation of country's work. That was very poorly worded, but I hope you understand what I mean, is that you cannot destroy the foundation and prop it up with the walls, which I would consider, I'm using the metaphor of a house right now, that the private sector is the foundation, the public sector are the walls. They will not maintain themselves. we see what happens to a lot of these countries that try and force everybody to be more involved in the public sector when government takes over, and then that's the only jobs available. Where do they get all the money from in order to pay for people? You can't. Most people who actually, I would say most people who go into public sector and make it high up, they get paid these ridiculous salaries. And a good example of it is the Sunshine List. If you ever taken a look through the Sunshine List, holy crap, there is a lot of people working in the public sector that make over $100,000 a year. A lot of them definitely come from. I was surprised how many were at colleges and universities too. I mean, you take a look through the Sunshine List, and it's just ridiculous. Actually, I think I still have the Sunshine List on here. Maybe I'll see if I can pull that up real quick, because it's long, man. I have it on an Excel document, and it is freaking long. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people on the Sunshine List. I know I have it saved somewhere, but I'm not sure where I ended up saving it to. Nope, not there. Hold on. I think there it is. I'll see if I can screen share it through. I'm using Google Hangouts right now, so I'll see if I can screen share that right now. Taking a while to load. My computer is freaking slow. I need a new one. Oh, yep. So still a few more to be announced to be elected, but already they're calling it in the news right now that they're already calling it in the news right now that Doug Ford has won his majority government. Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm so happy to see this. Hold on. Just give it a minute. It's takes a while to load. All right. Tell you what. When it actually loads, I will give you a screen share on that. For me too, I think one reason that I've also made the transition more towards the right wing of politics is that just watching Justin Trudeau and everything that he's done has been more than enough to persuade me to go there. Mad Dodge Productions, how you doing, bro? Doug Ford won. It's a good thing. The Socialist Liberal Party is finally been destroyed, and they've been destroyed quite nastily too. Although we pretty much just killed one dragon to have another one because literally we got rid of the Socialist Liberal Party and then put in the Democratic Socialist Party essentially as the opposition. But right now, Doug Ford has that majority government, and this is very, very freaking important. If I don't think even if the Conservatives have gotten only a minority government, even though they would have been in charge, this would have been disastrous because, as we've seen in the past, the NDP, despite the fact they like to present themselves as different, despite the fact they like to point out and say, that that the liberals are the problem. That the liberals, you can't trust the liberals. They're no good. Well, the NDP voted 97% of the time in favor with the Liberal Party, but now they want to come out and present themselves as being different, as if voting for the NDP actually would make a difference. You're not voting for anything special when it comes to them. I don't know. My Sunshine List is taking forever to load. Oh, there we go. Give me a second here, and I will share the screen. So yeah, these are all the people making $100,000 a year making 100 grand a year working in the public sector. And you got some obvious professions so we have. Let's go right back to the top because it's actually got each column. So here we go. We got on the far left sector, then last name, first name, salary paid, tax benefit, anything, employer, and then job title. And just look at this. How many people end up from colleges, universities? It's ridiculous. And you just keep going. Just keeps going. I mean, some of them are obvious. Like you saw a little bit at the bottom, there was like police and stuff like that. That makes sense, like why not necessarily why they'd be on the list, but it makes sense why these professions would be on the list. But then we got Treasury Board secretaries, transport, like the Ottawa Hospital. But Jesus Christ, look at this. And we're not even halfway yet. We are not even halfway yet. Oh, there's a good one. The City of Ottawa. City workers, the most useless fucking workers ever to exist. My brother used to work for a private construction company, and he used to rail against the city workers because you would just see, and you probably see them too. There's fucking 5 of them, 6 sometimes, and 95% of them aren't doing any work, and then one of them's just doing something. I remember this past summer actually, I was walking to work, and there was some city workers up ahead, and one of them was taking a nap in the tractor. 2 of them were on the phone. One of them was eating, and the last one was the one that was doing all the work. It was ridiculous. But they don't care. They get paid anyway, whether it's a good job or a bad job. But look at this. Look at this. Look at this. God damn. I actually even found people from my college as well on I found people from my college that were on this list too. And actually one of them in particular, not going to say any names or anything, but they ended up being on the list. And I can tell you one thing, this person was useless. I mean, I needed help from them at one point, and they were just freaking useless. I contacted him a few times. Pretty much, I said I was having trouble with. I was trying to contest one of my grades in one of my classes because I felt that I was not properly graded in there. And pretty much, I got told that, okay, well, you go talk to them, try and sort it out, and then email me back and tell me how it goes. And I found this person on the Sunshine list. They made $100,000. They make $100,000 a year. And that's the sort of service that they provided. And had a few more contacts with them, and it was just ridiculous. These are the people who have been allowed to have huge salaries under the Liberal government. I mean, can't really blame. Actually, yes, I can. 15 years of Liberal rules. I think we can blame the Liberal government completely for that. They like to present themselves. This is one thing I also learned when I started. This is one thing I started to learn too when I was when I started looking more into the left and finding out the problems with the left and left-wing politics, which is the idea that they present themselves one way, but then they always happen to be another way. So, for instance, they like to rail and say that the conservatives and right-wingers happen to be the conservative and right-wingers happen to like to line the pockets of the rich, and that you need to vote for liberals or you need to vote for NDP or wherever you happen to be, the Socialist Party, whatever the left-wing party has to be. No, we're going to make sure that they pay their fair share. But that's never the case. And I think the best example of this in Canada had to do with Justin Trudeau. He started when he was campaigning for the 2015 election. He was talking about how it's only fair if the rich pay their fair share. It's only fair if they pay a little bit more. Well, how many common folks out there, low income wage earners, have lost a lot more of their money because of Trudeau's taxes? And how many people has he gone off to and taxed them, despite the fact these are clearly not the rich 1% they like to talk about? They always like to use this as an excuse in order to tax everybody and get more of your money. Friggin' the best example I always have, and I think I've brought it up a few different times on the podcast. I think I brought it up a few different times on the podcast. Has to be with Justin Trudeau introduced that he wanted to tax the income of waiters, waitresses, and bartenders. These are the people that he wanted to tax the most. Not tax the most, but he wanted to tax their tips. Number one, they don't even make official minimum wage. They make what's called serving minimum wage, which is a couple bucks less. So they actually rely more on their tips. A lot of them I've heard rely more on their tips to pay off their bills than they do their actual paycheck. But no, this is unfair. Justin Trudeau needs his cut. And he ends up taxing these people on their tips. How ridiculous is that? It's absolutely fucking... It's the complete opposite of everything that he's ever talked about. It's the complete opposite of going after the rich. And in fact, how many of his rich friends surround him? He is the complete opposite of everything he's ever talked about. So it looks like we're going to be getting in on the final. We're coming in on the final results soon. Let's take a look here. Because as we can see, so far we just have a few left when it comes to the PCs, the NDP, and the Liberals that have to officially been announced as elected. But so 4 left for the PC, 6 left for the NDP, and 2 left for the Liberals. Well, let's browse the map a little bit more and just love this. I'm loving this right now. Loving this map. I mean, Northern Ontario, when it comes to the actual election itself, not very important. Really not. As we can see at the size of the ridings, they really don't bring in enough to be super relevant. You really need this GTA area the most because of all these tiny little ridings, which I guess if you're kind of looking at it, it seems a little unfair that there's so many in the Toronto region, which is also why I've actually why I also believe that there's so much emphasis whenever we're bringing in new immigrants or something, especially with everything that's happened since 2015 for Justin Trudeau and them. It's actually one reason that I think they focus so much on the Toronto area is because that's where all the votes are. And if they can actually if they can start manipulating the demographics in Toronto to make people vote for whether that happens to be NDP or the Liberals or just in general the left-wing politics, then it'd be very difficult for the PCs in order to win in whether we're talking about PCs, that would be Ontario, or just the Conservatives in general. One thing I remember is I remember one time I was watching an interview with Jesse Ventura, the old governor of Minnesota, and he's also an ex-wrestler, and he compared what goes on in politics to the WWE. He just talked about how when they're in, I guess, Congress for them, or here Parliament, when they're in there, they're screaming and yelling at each other, talking about how these people are the problem or these people are the problem. And then in front of the cameras, they'll go and they'll completely trash one another. But behind closed doors, they were all kind of friends. And that's sort of the idea that I got that's sort of the idea that I felt between when I looked at Andrea Horwath and Kathleen Wynne. Andrea Horwath had no problem throwing Kathleen Wynne under the bus during debates, during just about every single situation. But they always seemed, whenever you capture those whenever they got a picture of them, when they happen to be together, they always were seen smiling at each other in very friendly ways, not like the sort of way it usually is, like sort of the way they probably do with Doug Ford, which is like they'll smile at each other for appearance sake, but you can kind of see that behind the smile, there's that like dislike for him. You know what I mean? But then, so they've talked about, and they've also backed like Andrea Horwath once again. She's talked about how bad the liberals are. You can't vote for the liberals again. She voted 97% throughout her entire time as leader, along with on par with Kathleen Wynne's liberals. Well, apparently she didn't think they were that bad then. Then they were talking about a coalition together. Then Andrea Horwath says, we will never do it. We're not going to do a coalition with the Liberal Party. And then they're saying, oh, you know what? We're actually open to a coalition with the Liberal Party. They're just full of shit. They are completely full of shit. But what is beautiful about this map, what is beautiful about the amount of votes that the PC party is there is absolutely no way a coalition can happen. Even if the Liberals, NDP, and Green Party vote in tandem together, then they still don't have enough votes to take on Doug Ford's PC party. Halla frickin' Luya. Oh. Victory cigarette. Awesome. This has been awesome to see. Acadian Canuck. I have always been a conservative, even when it wasn't cool. Well, then, if you're still watching Acadian Canuck, I respect you, sir, because definitely the whole idea of conservatism has become a much more popular thing these days. And it must have been difficult when you were being a conservative back in the day. Back in I guess maybe the Harper days and before that. It must have been very difficult because people would always trash you for one reason or another. And the thing is, though, is now, even though people like to trash the right wing and conservatives for being whatever it happens to be, call them racist, Nazis, blah, 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 don't care about women's rights. There's so much more support, or people are at least waking up to what the left wing of politics these days really is, that it really doesn't hold merit anymore, that people just it washes right off them these days. Now they just say, oh, you think I'm a racist? You're full of shit. That's pretty much what it's become these days. Now, so we'll see with the so we have to thing is I'm happy right now because we did need this change, but we'll have to at least still bear in mind that it's possible that the conservatives will be very much like any other party out there and just do what's good for them. And a lot of people these days, I know that if we're taking, for instance, Trump, a lot of people these days are starting to get pissed off at Trump because they feel like he's capitulating or not doing what he campaigned on. So we have to bear this in mind when it comes to Ford. I vote for Ford because he's definitely the man that's going to make the changes we need right now, but he is a politician at the end of the day. And we need to always hold some reservations when it comes to dealing with politicians. But I find that maybe it's a little bit of a different situation when we're talking about provincial politics compared to federal. There's much more idea. Moat or cycle. I've been a conservative for 32 years. Wow. Respect, man. That's a long freaking time. But I find provincial politics and municipal politics, it's a little bit different. I find that this is probably where I could be wrong, but I feel like this is the areas where you're going to find politicians that are a little more legit, maybe, if that's the way to put it, when we're talking then in comparison to talking about federal politics. Because federal politics, like I already said before, that it's Jesse Ventura compared it to a WWE, and to WWE, just how it's all happens to be just how it all seems to be that everyone's friends behind the scenes. And I've been starting to notice a few things these days too. Actually, just the other day, somebody sent me a very interesting video. And what it is it's a picture from Australian Parliament and Canadian Parliament back in just before the Iraq War. And what it was is it was the Australian Prime Minister and then Stephen Harper before he was Prime Minister giving a speech about Iraq and the weapons of mass destruction. And it's a side by side of the two speeches. And literally, it's the same exact speech. And I mean the same words used. Not that they're saying similar things. They are literally using the exact same words. The only thing that was different was changing around the name of the country. So Australian Prime Minister talked about Australia. Stephen Harper talked about Canada. That was very interesting to me. And it's really, that video alone has started to, I've only saw it a couple days ago, but it's really made me started to reconsider when I'm thinking about federal politics. It made me think back to that. And like him or not, the whole Jesse Ventura being a very, very, you can say tinfoil hat if you want. Whether you like them or not, that it really brought me back to that quote when I saw those side by side pictures. It was eye opening for sure. But yeah, as it stands though today, we've got 40.16% of the popular vote for the Conservatives. We've got 34.08% for the NDP. The Liberal Party has 19.2%, and the Greens have 4.79%, and then just other has 1.77% of the popular vote. PC Party sitting at 72 seats. NDP Party, 41 seats. Liberals, 7. Green Party, 1. Others, 0. So maybe we'll see that change we're looking for in Ontario finally. At the very least, I think certain things, like as I was saying just a little bit earlier, the whole sexualization of children and that radical sexual education that was written by a pedophile, I think that at the very least is going to change. Like they're going to at least going to repeal that. And maybe we will not have grade 1s learning about sex and grade 2 or 3s learning about oral sex. And by grade 6, you're learning about anal sex. It's absolutely disgusting. I don't think there's anything else I can really say on the matter right now. I may be back on in a little bit with Bold Like Leopard, possibly. But as it stands, when we're talking about the election results, I think I've said all I can. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Adrian Lloyd. This is just my stupid opinion.